Hello, everyone, and welcome to Piloting the Future, a podcast brought to you by Energy Central. Here on Piloting the Future, we're going deep with the leaders, innovators, and forward thinkers responsible for not just imagining where our power future is headed, but building it day by day. In each episode, we go beyond the headlines to hear from the industry insiders and bold, game-changing innovators to separate the hype from reality. Lee! Hey, welcome. It's time for another awesome podcast, Piloting the Future. I am super excited about our topic today. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. We're going to be focusing on women leaders in the energy industry.
Yeah, there's three things I love about this episode. One is women leadership, awesome topic to discuss. Also, innovation as always. And then customer focus, which to me is very difficult in the energy industry. We used to call customers ratepayers. We didn't even call them customers. And people didn't know how to read their bills. They didn't know what anything meant. The only time they wanted to talk to somebody from their electric company was when they had a problem. So they never really appreciated you for the dial tone service you were providing. So interesting topics today.
Yeah, and it all weaves together because, when you start thinking about women, innovation, like I said, this is a topic that's near to my heart because I get a lot of questions about it. And what a lot of people don't know is about 1 in 5 leaders in the energy industry is a woman, about 18%. We make up leadership roles. 19% higher rates of innovation get driven when women are in leadership roles. And I also love this stat, 38% more revenue comes from those more innovative products. Well, I'm really excited today to be talking about how these women are driving innovation in the energy industry, because it's not just about these new futuristic ideas. What you're going to hear today is innovation that's coming right at the core, the operational core of the business, and will be driving customer-centric ideas. So fasten your seatbelt. It's time to talk about what happens when we move from ideas to impact with the Women's Energy Alliance, CleanSky, and VertexOne.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have with us Lindsey Margiotta, Chief Operating Officer at CleanSky, and also Leadership Advisor and Founding Board Member at Women's Energy Alliance. We also have Tamara Grose, Vice President of Client Success at VertexOne, and also a board member at the Women's Energy Alliance. Welcome to Piloting the Future.
Well, thank you. Such a pleasure to be a part of your platform.
Absolutely. Really excited to get to kind of talk about the things that we're doing hopefully every day and the kind of what's coming next. So super excited and appreciate being a part of it.
Yeah, Lindsey, can you talk about the Women's Energy Alliance? What is it? What do you do? How do you help?
Sure. So, for years, there's been a very big focus, right, on deregulation, specifically around the retail markets. And we found over the years that regardless of how many women have continued to kind of move up and have become leaders in our organizations, we have found that typically women's groups really focus still around some of the non-deregulated areas, really around kind of where regulation still occurs, obviously the big generators and things like that. And so we kind of found a space and we were like, look, there's women in deregulated energy who have a really big focus on the customer and what customers' needs are and how we can support that. And so we found an opportunity and said, let's get a group together, and we want to focus not just on women leaders, but really women at all areas of their career. So how do we bring those women together? How do we give them opportunities to collaborate? To network and to share their ideas kind of across broader spectrum beyond just sitting in that leadership room. So I think that's kind of how it started. And we got excited and we got together and, earlier this year, we launched it. We've had great success. We've had over, I think, 100 members join us. And so we're really excited just to kind of continue to grow and see what's next.
Tamara, can you talk about your experience with WEA?
So, yeah, absolutely. I was thrilled to get the call to be a part of the Women Energy Alliance as well. I've been in the energy industry for quite a while, along with Lindsey, 20 plus years. And we have made tremendous strides from a leadership perspective there. And with being a part of the Women's Energy Alliance, it really gives me an opportunity to be a part of a group that will help with mentorship and help bring up our future leaders. So yeah, very much looking forward to continuing to do the work with the group.
Probably the best energy leader that I ever worked for was a woman, Debbie Reed, who was the CEO at San Diego Gas and Electric and then was promoted to be CEO of Sempra Energy. And I found her to be very tough, but what was so refreshing was also very open. And that combination made for fantastic leadership, I thought.
Absolutely. And if I could chime in there, Lee, I think we see time over time with the stats that speak directly to women in leadership is that balance. As women, our ability to come in and do the day to day and, have the tough discussions and be in the boardroom, but also balance that with all of the things that a woman usually brings to the table, right? It's our ability to be understanding and open and ask the right questions and have that nurturing side to us and not losing that because we may be in a male dominated field.
I should also say that she was amazing with numbers. She could look at a spreadsheet and in seconds find out where you weren't exactly right and why that mattered. It was awesome.
I think women are definitely tough leaders, right? They definitely walk into the room probably with some high expectations of not only their staff, but of themselves, right? And having to learn how to appreciate their engagement in the room, that they were invited to that room, that they're there for a reason. And I think that's one thing that we try to kind of re-impress upon is how do we make sure that women know when you're invited to the room, you deserve to be there? And how can you speak to that and lead it? They think women do it. Yes, they can be tough, but I think women also have Tamara said, a softer side, right? That allows people to be open and feel comfortable and provide that safe space, especially when we're talking about innovation.
Lindsey, can you talk about what CleanSky does specifically?
We're a deregulated energy. So we are what I consider true retail. We don't do generation. We are direct impact to the customer. So it is my job to make sure that my customers that come and sign up with CleanSky Energy have the best opportunity, best products, best, disaster recovery, best options when they're making choices around their gas and electricity. So it's my job to kind of facilitate that, obviously operationalize that, and then give those end results to those customers.
Now, utilities definitely need to be risk averse. So how do you focus on innovation?
I think that utilities and even regulatory, right, are big pieces and how we kind of have to shift things in the future to be able to continue innovation. It's important as we innovate that we are looking to technology and allowing that to happen. I think that a lot of times utilities and regulators, unfortunately, are a little behind from the technology side of it. And so it puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage on what we can offer to customers and how we can get the customers more involved in what their consumption looks like. So as we move forward, it's important that not only that we partner with them, but that we really help educate them and what that technology next step forward looks like. So hopefully they can be a part of it versus kind of a roadblock that we have to get past.
And Tamara, can you talk about VertexOne?
Absolutely, yes. So we are actually a SaaS company. So, that is software as a service. And we do manage or support both on the utility side as well as on the deregulated side of the business. And, innovation for us means ensuring we're listening to our customer. Right. I think we sometimes get caught up on what is the next trending topic or the next trending thing, but we really need to understand, is there going to be a value to the client? What will that value be? Let's get input from our client to continue to lead the way in that area.
I looked at some of the tools that you work with utilities to adopt, and I know that we really could have used that at SDG&E. Our customers just didn't understand rates at all and how they were being being charged. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, and I think that is critical as we lead the way. Again, what are the meaningful tools for our clients? We do have a customer portal that we have been enhancing as well, and there's more to come on that. But giving clients access to things at their fingertips will help with the understanding on how the day-to-day business works. You made a comment earlier, Lee, that um, clients weren't as familiar with what the utility did other than paying the bill, right? I know I turn the lights on, the power comes on, I pay the bill. We are now at the point where in the palm of my hand, I can see my weekly usage. I can see my daily usage. I can, have my lights turned on and off remotely. So it's ensuring that we continue to stay ahead of that. So in my role as VP of Client Success, more specifically for our retail product, and supporting the regulated side of the business, we need to listen to what our clients are saying in our regular conversations. It's not always about what is the next innovative topic. It is what does their business need day to day so that we can help lead that innovation.
Great. Here's a question for both of you. How has the Women's Energy Alliance helped each of you specifically?
For me, it's done a few things for me, right? One, it's allowed me to continue to grow my network, right? So it's allowed me to have conversations with people that I may have only seen once or twice a year at a conference, and now we're engaging more often and on a more regular basis. And I think that's really important. It's giving me an opportunity to learn what other people in my same industry are doing every day, and how can I potentially leverage that or use that in a way that helps, not only myself, but the end use customers. And then the other thing it's giving us is when we are looking to make changes, whether it's at the regulatory level or at the utility level, it's kind of nice to have that group of people that says, hey, we're all looking for these same things together. And I think it's a stronger voice when you stand in front of those people and the lawmakers and the people that can really help us affect change. We're a stronger voice as a group than as individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Similarly, on my side, let's look at the learning component. I mentioned earlier up and coming leadership. I think sometimes we get stuck in the mindset that mentorship only goes one way or learning only goes one way. We have the next set of leaders coming up that are actually helping us get a pulse on where we need to focus for the future. So absolutely, we can share and help develop as they're coming up in their leadership roles, but equally the folks that are coming up throughout the industry will help us keep a pulse on what we need to be looking forward to.
Tamara, can you share a leadership success story?
I've actually had quite a few. I will maybe go back to very early on in my career, and I worked for a very well-known retail energy provider out of Toronto. This was back in 2004. And we were at an all-day meeting, ran into a lady in the restroom, and she was very well polished, extremely well spoken, very friendly. And when I got back into the auditorium, she actually was the new senior director of our customer experience team. And I had no clue. And I just kind of sat there in awe that, she took the time. She was so polite with me in the restroom. She made me feel heard and important based on some of the feedback I was giving about the overall conference. Flash forward about a year later, a position in her department came up. And I applied for that position and hadn't seen her in that whole time. And as soon as I walked into the room, she's like, I remember you. I remember speaking to you and we hit it off and we chatted. Long story short, I ended up joining her org. And until this very day, she is one of my greatest friends and mentors. And, to tie that back to the leadership perspective, I was still fairly young in my career. I was still in school and I was learning. And she took a chance with me at that time. And she took me under her wing. She brought me to meetings with very large clients, and she always pushed me to learn more. So, I often say to her, I owe a lot of what I've been able to accomplish to the fact that she just gave me a chance. And that's why mentorship is so important to me. And I take it very seriously.
What I really appreciate about that answer is I think it makes sense. Usually people talk about a success they've had leading, but you really talked about something that inspired you to be a leader. And I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. I appreciate that take on the question.
That was a
And
great
that's not,
story. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not
thank
trying to put pressure on you. Let's see.
you.
I like to also hear one for you, and it's totally fine if it's a success story in your leadership.
I was very lucky, like Tamara said, I've had really great mentors, and I will say that over the years, both male and female. So, it wasn't just female driven. I had a specific male mentor that kind of took me through the ropes and kind of said, these are the things that, you need to expect. And well, when you get in the room, you are there for a reason. You need to speak and don't let your voice be heard. It's okay to speak up. He pushed me to speak at events. He pushed me to speak in front of others. He pushed me to join the conferences. Why? Because he said, one day you need to have your own brand, right? Brand yourself, show what you're worth, have others acknowledge who you are. And so I think like Tamara, I think I took that to heart almost to the point of now, right? Getting to kind of do the same thing, being a part of a board with the conference and being a part of the WEA and kind of sharing that experience with women and going, push yourself forward, allow yourself to be open and not afraid of taking that next step and building yourself and your brand and what's important to you. And it doesn't matter that it doesn't necessarily align with everyone else, right? You need to be your own individual self, and you were invited into the room because of that reason.
Yeah, if I could add one more other point, Lindsay, that to kind of drive home the point, I think there's this misconception that there aren't male allies for women in leadership, and that is the farthest thing from the truth. I mean, naturally, just by birth rates, women outnumber the men, so I could see how that could be possibly a misconception. But the reality is, in our industry and in many industries, there are a lot of men that are just looking for the right person to help lead the team, grow the business, grow the industry. And we do have that support.
So I know that I think we have a unique opportunity with both of you as guests, and you've been able to tell a little bit of your stories, which has been awesome. I want to get more into what we started to talk about at the beginning, which was operationalizing innovation. In today's climate, we keep hearing more about the importance of affordability. And of course, you all bring that customer-centric voice, which is so great. So the unique opportunity I think we have for you all and your mentor, provide some mentorship for all of us as you're working through that front line. So you're innovating, you've got that customer centricity at your heart, and your front line leaders are the ones working with customers. How do you think about innovation? How do you think about operationalizing that? Sometimes I feel like we forget that process that our frontline leaders go through and they work with their customers, we forget that is innovating. Can you all maybe share some thoughts here?
For sure, for sure. At VertexOne, we actually have a program called X Factory. And we encourage frontline right through the organization. How can we be better? What are you hearing from our clients? And it's actually a formal program that has been put together where ideas can be submitted and discussed with the leadership level. And, once selected, it will go through the necessary process. So I think the key thing is encouraging that environment. I think there's an opportunity for us to continue to encourage our frontline staff, whether there is formal programs or not. Sometimes it's just a discussion as a part of your one-on-one or weekly team call. There doesn't have to be a formal program in place, but at VertexOne, we do have a formal program that allows us to get suggestions from our team.
Yep. So kind of the discussion and kind of what it reminds me of is what I kind of refer to as kind of the innovation pipeline. Like, what does that pipeline look like for innovation, and how does that start, and what does that look like? And it's kind of, it has a few steps, right? But it kind of starts at the easiest one, which was, hey, what's an idea? And so sometimes what I will do is put a template together, because sometimes you just need those guys to take 5 minutes out of their day and kind of read that template, and it kind of gives them some things to think about. And then they can kind of start writing, hey, this is an idea that I had, right? That maybe they wouldn't have stopped and written down if I hadn't given them that 5 minutes to say, hey, take a pause and let's think about what's something that you've heard over the last week that you think is really important that we need to hear about, right? And to your point, the front line is the ones that give you most of that information. But you want to give them a safe place to do that. So whether that's through doing it through an email, through kind of drop it off at a desk or a box, do it anonymously so people have that comfort and they can do that. I think that's really important. And then I think guiding it through, I think one thing that I have found where people stumble and not getting innovation through your day to day is you believe it has to be this huge project with all these huge budgets and all these huge time consuming. We've got to put a project manager behind it and these huge ROIs behind it, or does it make sense? And so for me, I'm really a big believer in taking something small, allowing it to be small, and what can we do with that very small item? Is it something that we got a quick win out of? Is it something that maybe we need to do some more development and discovery behind before we put a huge budget around it? Or is it something maybe that we pause for now, but we have to acknowledge, right? We acknowledge the idea, we acknowledge the input, and maybe it's just something that doesn't make sense today. But it's really, I think, important not to let our day-to-day stop us or say, oh, we don't have the budget or we don't have the ROI. Let's take the simplistic approach. What is the initial, just simplified idea? And how can we take that from an idea to actually innovation and something that we can test, even if it's on a small scale? So for me, that's really important. And I try to do that every day and say, okay, that's a great idea. It's probably at a large scale too big today, but can we take a piece of that and can we implement that immediately and see if we can, get what are our metrics and what does that look like and what does success look like? I feel like people's, especially in the front lines, they need those little wins. They need those kind of small successes, because then they feel and they will get behind the larger decisions and the bigger changes that happen.
Yeah, and I think it also shows that as a business, we're willing to take a chance, right? We're willing to take a chance. There's nothing wrong with doing something small or to pilot, but let's at least take the chance.
So you said the magic word for me, and that is pilot. Can you each talk about an experience, and it could be on the person doing the piloting, receiving, or on the person that has the product that's being piloted, an interesting piloting story that involves going from pilot to takeoff?
Most recently, I think we have some of the challenges we have, and this is with, obviously technology and systems and really being able to drive and get to the data that we need. Most importantly, what is the very first thing? It's products driven to market. How do I get new innovative products to market for consumers? And some of the product ideas that we may have may help one customer. It could help 200 customers. And so a lot of the times before I'll go do new development or before I'll take the steps to make a specific change, I will go and say, okay, let's take this small product. Let's only release it to, a handful of people and let's see their response from it first, right? So we did that recently. We had some products specifically on like shopping sites where we know customers can be more rate driven. And we said, look, how do we present it in a way that they can see it in a way that helps them? I've done it through DR programs. I have a little bit of a passion for the entire and understanding the peaks and the on peaks and people's individual usage needs. Right, wrong, or indifferent. There's been rules, unfortunately, that have kind of restricted some of that. And so I get very excited when I see the opening of the rules that allow us to say, okay, how do I really customize something for this customer? And so I try, and we have done that kind of on some smaller scales, right? We haven't been able to release it like to everyone everywhere, but especially in certain markets, a Texas market or a PA market where I'm able to get to that 15-minute interval data and I'm able to actually see what people use on and off peak. It's given me some ability to kind of really tailor products around that.
And I think maybe what I would add to that for VertexOne and from a SaaS perspective, it's supporting a client through that. So if I have a retail energy provider, that is doing a pilot and is taking that chance, they don't get the results that they expected. Well, what can I do and what can my software do to help modify and pivot for you? And let's try the phase 2 and let's see if we get a different response.
So let's move now to the next segment of the podcast, which is a visionary's take, or I like to say we're going to cut through the BS and get right to the point. So for both of you, I would love to hear more about how do you think the energy industry at large could embrace more women in leadership roles? I would love to see more than 1 in 5 women be leaders of major energy organizations. And I'd love to see more women founders. Only 11% of women are founders in the energy industry. How do you think the energy industry at large, and maybe this is through your work with WEA, how do you think we can embrace more women leaders?
I think there's a combination of ways. I'll start with how individually as women we can help encourage that. Is one, realizing that you need to come as your authentic self. If you are in a male-dominated industry, that doesn't mean that you need to show up and try and emulate the man in the room. Come as your authentic self. That is one. Then from there, I would say build a community of folks that can help you grow, right? Look for the support and the mentorship across the board. It could be a peer, it could be outside of the industry or within. And then the next piece would be continue to have a voice. Every space that you're in, use that as an opportunity to encourage that with both male and female counterparts. And the more that we're talking about this is, I think, the more that folks will be open to, well, what does that really mean? How could I implement that in my organization? Are there folks within my organization that I maybe, if I didn't hear the discussion in a room amongst other female leaders, I wouldn't have even really realized that I might have somebody within my group that is a superstar, but is just a little bit shy and needs encouragement to speak up and continue to excel.
So for me, I think, women in leadership, whether it's in this industry or really any industry, right? I think there's a couple of takeaways specifically for women that they can look at differently or do differently, right? One is there is a certain amount of confidence level that when you walk into a room, people know it. I tell even my 10-year-old daughter, if you believe in you, everybody else will. It won't matter, because when you walk in the room and you believe in yourself, everybody else around you will know it and they will feel it. And that goes from your boss all the way down to the people that work for you, right? I have to instill that confidence in the people that are around me to follow me and to allow me to lead them. It's a different type of leadership for a woman typically than a man, meaning women typically lead through example. They lead through experience. They lead through collaboration. It's not a dictatorship downward. It's more of a collaborative effort upward. And so I think it's really important to think about that as we start talking about, okay, who are our next leaders? Who do we want them to be? We want them to be those people that are listening, that are collaborating, and that are continuing to bring people with them to the forefront, to the future, to the next big thing. The other thing I think, especially, I was a part of a startup, obviously, here recently. And I think one thing women can do, I think men are just typically more, they just are naturally, they kind of go this direction. Men are risk takers. Men typically have more appetite for risk. Women are more in the safety area. They try to keep people safe. To nurture. That is just part of kind of who they are. And I think when you want to do something like a startup and you want to be in that innovation and startup mode, you have to be okay with risk. You can't be afraid of failure. It's okay to fail. Like, that's how I get to the next thing. And so I really try to remind, especially women, it's okay to be risky a little bit. It's okay to just trust yourself. Or, you know what? Sometimes you're not going to know the exact right answer, but that's okay. You're going to spend the time and you're going to get there and you're going to get to it. And so I think that is something, again, I try to impress. Don't always have to make the decision once you've got every piece of the data. Like, just to go with what you know. You have the ability to make those decisions. And if you get better about being okay with your decisions and knowing, this might go really well, it might not, but I've been here long enough that if it doesn't go well, I know how to fix it. So it's okay if I fail. I can fix it. I think you will see more women evolve into leaders naturally. And I think you will see more women taking the risks of wanting to be a part of startups and things like that because they're okay with risk. They've got the confidence in themselves to say, regardless of the outcome, I can still get myself and this company to the next step. And so I think that's something that all women and really people in general, but especially women, can take from this.
It's amazing. I was listening to a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and the lady that was the guest actually used a phrase that has stuck in my mind. What would Chad do? And the thought process there is Chad's out of college or university. He's eager, he's young, he's got the stamina, and he's a risk taker. And if you take the moment to step back and say, what would Chad do? What do you have to lose, so to speak? And if you're willing to deal with what the worst outcome is, take it.
I've said that several times. When everyone gets very upset and it's a very chaotic experience, I said, no one's going to die. It's okay. We are not heart surgeons. We are not brain surgeons. I promise you, no matter what, that this is not the first time it's occurred. It's not going to be the last time it's occurred, and we can fix it. So just keep calm and keep moving forward. That's the most important piece.
My wife and I have been watching a lot of WNBA together recently. And one of the things that we've noticed is that the women playing, first of all, they're awesome, but they're willing to take shots, hard shots, miss a few, and then keep shooting until they break through their slump. And I think that is a little bit more new for women than men. And I think it's super, super important to be willing to miss that shot in business as well as in sports. If you don't take the shot, it's a miss also.
Oh, absolutely. I say it again. My mother said it to me. I say it to my kids. If you don't ask, the answer is automatically no. So take the chance, take the moment, ask the question, see what you can do, and move forward. I just don't believe in most cases, any risk that you're taking is going to be something that you can't get past, especially in our industry. And I think, again, to your point, women being comfortable with that, I think is new. And I love seeing it. I think it's great.
We're going to move on to the hot seat section. And so I'd really like answers, 30 seconds, a minute max, your thoughts on some interesting topics. And the first one is worldwide. In the next 5 years, what do you think the biggest technical challenge is?
So for me, I'm going to speak specifically to our industry, right? What is the biggest technical challenge? Rules and regulators getting on board with those changes. Technology is very good about moving forward. Decisions typically take a really long time. And so for me, technology moves forward. You've got AI now that can predict forecasting. It can predict someone's usage. It can predict when they're around and when they're not. The data is available, right? It's about, how do I get access to that data? How does my technology partners get access to that data so that we can use that, right, for our end use customers? And how do I make sure that the rules catch up to all of the data and the technology that I brought forward? So for me, always with technology it's not the technology itself that typically hinders me. It's the rules and the regulations that kind of hold me back from being able to take that next step.
Yeah, and I would say from the software side is, of course, AI and overall technology has its place, but ensuring we still have the balance of the brain power and the human element where necessary. There are things that we can automate and it will be wonderful and it will help drive our business. But if you do not have the right perspective on how you're implementing that, ensure you're clear on what success truly looks like, and keep a pulse on what the impact is to your end user, your client, the industry overall, you run the risk of missing the mark. So ensuring that balance is there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always goes back to AI. I mean, Lee and I have been talking about this a lot on the podcast. I was actually on an Energy Central podcast where I said I was experiencing AI fatigue coming out of a very large conference at the beginning of the year. But now, when you just see how exponentially fast it advances, there's just the adoption of it by people, getting back to the human element. And I wrote an article about it, and I said, AI is not the superpower. The superhero is you in the AI story, because a human is still in the loop right now most of the time when we use it. And so from a human-based perspective, how I find it very interesting how people are using AI to solve big problems. That inspired me to start Innovation Force. I wanted to democratize innovation, and I knew software AI would help scale it, because it was very difficult without it to be able to get to the masses of people that could really come together to collaborate in meaningful ways to solve the big planetary problems that I think human ingenuity will ultimately solve. But if we can use AI and harness the power of it for good, I think we could get there faster. So yeah, I'm continually impressed with how people choose to use AI to get the jobs they need done. And for me, that's been about democratizing innovation with AI.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, again, to bring it back to the Vertex platform, we have a product called Vertex VX Connect. And what we're doing with that platform is, again, using the AI intelligence that we have to bring multiple platforms together that will improve the experience for our client, right? So again, it's a tool, and it's how you use that tool. Of course, it has its place, but ensuring that you're keeping close to that and understanding what it is actually doing for the end user will continue to just propel us.
The next question is, and I'd like each of you to answer it, a myth about being a woman in the energy industry that you'd like to bust.
I think I mentioned it earlier in one of my responses, being your authentic self. There's a misconception that to move up the leadership ladder, that you have to come in and, go against the grain of what you truly believe in, or that sometimes you'll be in a position where things don't feel like you can be as integral as you feel you should. And that's just not true. I think if you stick to who you are, you will easily identify what is the right space for you, and you will flourish in the right space for you, versus trying to fit into a space that maybe doesn't align with what's important to you.
And I think the same goes for men on that front. It's very tempting to just be like the generic dude that's supposed to be a leader.
Make everyone happy, go against the grain some.
Be your authentic self. Be who you really are, and you'll be a lot happier in that role.
Exactly. And then you get the respect of your colleagues and the industry, because they might say, okay, well, that one's a tough cookie, or, they may push back, but at least your integrity is not in question.
I think that women, specifically in energy, one myth that they really have is that they are only suited for certain types of roles. Like they're only really good at, speaking to the customer in a customer service aspect, or they're only really good at, the back end, quieter financials aspect of it, or they don't really belong on the, maybe the supply or the sales, or they don't fit into that group in the same way, or even into a leadership role, right? Because they've seen the men that have come before them. And so I think women tend to box themselves in, and that is 100% incorrect. That is a myth. There are women that have touched every portion of our industry in some way. They have left their footprint in some way. They have shown how their contributions and their aspect and the way they see it contributes in a way that maybe a man wouldn't. And so I think that's one myth we really have to get rid of. Women don't belong in just one space. Women can be in any space, regardless of what that space looks like, if that's what they want. I really am believing in and agree. And again, I did have a male mentor. And I remember him telling me, don't look at it as you're the only woman in the room. Look at it as you are the woman in the room. You have value to give to this room that these gentlemen may not have. And that's why you're here. So don't look at yourself and isolate yourself as your only operations or your only customer service or your only this. Put all the hats on, put the sales hat on, put the, the wholesale hat on, put the buying hat, put the pricing hat on for a second and feel it and understand it and work through it, because you can do it regardless of who you are or what your gender or background may be.
I interviewed Maria Robinson last year. She was the director of Grid for the Department of Energy. And she said she had a boss who happened to be male, that she said to that boss, what I really want to be is the chief of staff for somebody really important. And he replied, no, be the really important person, not the chief of staff, which I thought was fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. It just reaffirms, like, don't box yourself in a way that you believe because that's what you've been told or that's what you've seen, that you believe that's the only path, because it's just not, right? There's so many opportunities. And again, being the only woman in the room, you're going to give something that potentially is even greater. So instead of looking at it as I'm the only woman in the room, be proud of the fact that you are the woman in the room and you're able to bring some of those things forward.
And take that shot.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
Take that risk.
Exactly.
That's right. Check that real-time market at 10 o'clock at night because you're worried if you didn't do the right buy. Be that person.
For me, something that I've focused on, maybe the next generation coming in, so the women that are the next generation coming in, that you have to change yourself for this industry or for the role. I did that. Don't do what I did. For the first 20 years of my career, I thought I had to look a certain way. I thought I had to act a certain way. And I tried almost at one point, it felt like I was kind of more of the guy in the room than the guys because I thought I had to be an expert on sports, like Monday, it's the exec staff Monday, and here I am, an overachieving woman looking at, well, what were the sports scores this weekend? Because I'm going to have to be able to make that small talk too, right? And then I started to realize, no, I was getting my hair cut a certain way. I had to look a certain way. And when I started my own company and, the last 5 years of then this is it, I'm kind of looking now and this is the back nine that I have in this industry. I'm not going to change for people anymore. I'm going to be who I am and have talk about the things I care about, work on the things I care about. And so when I see women coming into the industry and I see that younger version of me, what I like to say to them is, please use the slang words that you normally use. Please wear the clothes that make you uniquely you. It makes us want to be able to work with you when we can see past, the suit. So please don't change yourself for this industry. Bring your full self. We need you and your authentic self and your God-given skills and talents to lend us here to get us to where we need to go. It's a really important point in our future. We need everyone.
Yeah. And if I think back to my younger days, I wish I heard that 20 years ago. Right? You're hearing and seeing a lot more of it now, which is amazing, and we're going to continue. But how much further along could I have possibly been if I heard that then?
And that's our focus. Again, back to WEA. That's our values, right? That's a core part of our values and what we're trying to do. Making sure women know that they're heard, that they're here, and letting everybody else know that we're here with them.
So this was an awesome discussion today. If you were inspired by what you heard, please share this episode on LinkedIn. Share it with your friends. Make sure that your women and male counterparts get to hear this, because I think there is a lesson in it for all of us trying to make a difference in this industry. Be sure to check out the Women's Energy Alliance. Just go to women'senergyalliance.org and get involved as a mentor. We need you. And be a part of this awesome organization. And of course, don't forget, if you have an idea for an upcoming podcast on piloting the future, please tag me, tag Innovation Force, tag Energy Central. Let us know who you'd like to see on the next episode, and feel free to leave us your thoughts on this one. So Lee, with that, I think we can fasten our seatbelts. We're coming in for a landing.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have my daughters watch this episode.
Me too.
Thank you again for the opportunity to share and have some good discussion with you all.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the time.